Even everyone, welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back on the Monday evening show where we ask the same question we ask every Monday evening. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. Newcastle United are still wanted and at large by the Met Police for a theft in London at the weekend where we robbed 3 points from Craven Cottage. But my word, 7 out of 9 certainly feels a lot better than what it could have been, mate. What's going on with you?
I'm just trying to work out how on earth I've managed to do well, potentially do my Achilles in while asleep, but that's a completely different story. Only me, yeah.
Even for you, the viewers who have been with us for a long time will probably know this, that Mark is basically made out of glass and has been injured from the age of 14 onwards. But invariably, that was from sporting activity, mainly football. But Mark has now somehow managed to injure himself just by doing everyday dad and lad things, which is a new record for you, Mark, I must say.
Well, yeah. I think it's just I can't. I don't get it at all. It's just ridiculous.
No,
but anyway, enough of my ailments.
I was going to say, no idea. They will be prepping the suite for you in the RVI as we speak, mate, I'm pretty sure. It's been a long time since they've saw you, so they might roll out the red carpet. But listen, we're in a celebratory mood this week, aren't we, mate? Because, drum roll, please, we have smashed through the 7,000 subscriber mark, thanks to you wonderful people and everyone you've recommended us to. So, yeah, recently my rant video about a certain David Brent who likes to shout United all the time. That's my little impression there. I'm going to add that to my Steve Bruce repertoire, I think. So we are over 7K now. So thank you everyone who smashed that button. Thank you for all the love in the community chat message that Mark put out earlier on as well. We really appreciate it. We're still very, new to this whole thing, as I always say, even though Mark tells me off because we've been doing it over 2 years now. We are still very new compared to a lot of other people. And to have got to this, to got to this level as quick as we have is all thanks to you wonderful bastards and bitches who watch us all the time. So thank you so much, everybody. Broad spectrum there, Mark. Broad spectrum.
Just to make you all feel wonderfully welcome.
Yeah. I like to make you feel special. You love the rant, so there you go. You're part of it. You're part of it as well. But now we do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Onwards to 8K, but we will be trying to secure our 7K prize. It is a belter. I've been working on it for a while, so hopefully we'll be able to get that sorted in the next few weeks, guys, and we'll give you a chance to win that. But we are live tonight, as always, on What's Going On. So jump in the comments. We always appreciate that. It always helps the episode flow. Look, Mark's got a fancy new banner as well. He's been playing around on half term, keeping himself busy. That's what happens when you do your Achilles. Exactly, which is good for the channel. But yeah, so like I said, we've got loads of content to cover tonight. We're going to get stuck right into this. I think there's only one place to start, Mark, really, isn't there? And that is the main reason that we won the weekend was the Bruno Brilliance, really, wasn't it, mate? In terms of our Brazilian superstar Bruno Guimarães and obviously what he did in the game, by grabbing it by the nuts and obviously scoring the winner. I mean, was he the best player in the park for you? He kind of is every week, mate. But did you think he was at the weekend?
I thought, a little bit of a toss-up, to be honest, because I thought certainly the two centre-backs were exceptional as well. After having absolutely slated Martin Dubravka in previous weeks, I thought he did all right at the weekend. I thought he had a good game too, made some important saves. Didn't put a foot wrong, really. I think Fabian Schär had a little moment that he probably wants back that nearly cost a goal, but got away with it. But overall, I think Bruno was exceptional. He sort of took the game a little bit by the scruff of the neck at times again, and he gets himself so involved in every sort of aspect. And he didn't have as many touches of the ball or was involved in as many passes as would normally be, and especially, I mean, you touched on it in the post game at one point. Polinia had more passes than the entire Newcastle midfield at about half an hour or 40 minutes into the game. But that first half was sort of weather the storm, and then Newcastle came out and sort of not took over, but were far more of a threat second half. If you look at the sort of something like the attack momentum graph that places like SofaScore have, it's pretty much all Fulham first half. The odd little dot of blue where it shows Newcastle. Second half was much more even in that regard, and one goal chalked off and a brilliant finish for the second goal. It just capped off a particularly second half, I think, performance for Bruno and for the side.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think Bruno was very good, but I think we've already had some love in the comments there for Elliot Anderson again. I mean, we'll come on to Joe Willock in a bit more detail because I've got some concerns about him, and Mark and I'll have a good chat about that in a second. But I think Anderson changed the game. I think he changed the tempo of the game, as we've been saying for weeks now. Ever since he's come back from this back injury, he's come back with a real sense of purpose, isn't he? He's maybe the first couple of appearances, he was slowly growing into things. He was putting a few good tackles, rattling some players. But we've seen the last few cameos of him. He's really brought that aggression that we've missed so much with Joelinton being out of the team. And Bruno thrives on that kind of a player as well. He thrives on a player to smash into people, to make himself available, to play off Bruno's brilliance, with those little 1-2s. I mean, we saw on the goal, Bruno Guimarães gives Anderson that ball. And I think somebody put it out there on I think it was X it was. And there's so many players who would have passed the ball to Alexander Isak in that moment. But Anderson's got the temerity to realise Barnes is making that run. He plays that beautiful flick round the back, basically takes the entire three of the back four of Fulham out because they haven't spotted Harvey Barnes. And before we know it, we're in. And then it frees Bruno up to make that run and score that winning goal. And I just think that it's great to see Anderson growing in stature, Mark, isn't it, in terms of what he's bringing to this team. I spoke about it post-match. I think that, and again, caveat, I love Shaun Longstaff. I think he's a lovely lad. He's worked his nuts off for this football team, and he's real part of the reason we were in the Champions League, really, this season after what he did last season. But, injury and form, he's really dropped off this season. And unfortunately for Shaun, Louis Miley's emerged and looked really, really good, really assured, especially at the young age he is. And now Elliot Anderson has come back. And could this finally be the time, Mark, for Elliot Anderson to really step up and obviously be the player that we've all wanted him to be, really? We're putting too much pressure on him again, or is it a case of he maybe has turned that corner?
I mean, I'd say that it's about bloody time because we've been saying this for a couple of seasons now, where every time we go into a preseason, we sort of go and watch him in preseason, and he looks brilliant, and he takes over games, and you can see the player in there. But I think he has sort of grown in stature a little bit, and I think literally as well. I think he's put on a bit of muscle over the last 12 months. He definitely looks much more of a physical, what's the right word, specimen as a midfielder. He's definitely stepped into that Joelinton hole that's been there, and he's kind of been the one that's shown the way, that aggressive press that Newcastle love to play with, and that Eddie Howe loves them to play with. And if you go back, I think to the Liverpool game where Pope got sent off, in particular, he started off really well with that press, and he was the one that was ended up being sacrificed. And you just saw bits of it then, and just going, that's what the player that's in there. And he's shown since he's come back in, he's just bullish, and he loves to get on the ball. He loves to be able to go and press plays. He loves to be involved in it. And the touch is there as well. And that little flick that he did on Saturday was just epitomised the quality that he's got. And hopefully that's we've seen the problems that he's had with his injury, but it's a turning point, I think. And hopefully we're, not put too much pressure on him. But he now has to really, really take this chance, especially with Willock's injury as well. And I know we'll come to Joe in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely is. The platform is his, really, to do with it, what he wants, especially with the likes of Joelinton now and Sandro Tonali ban. A good comment there, sorry, by Antagonize. I clicked the wrong one there. Saying that Eddie Howe giving them a bollocking on the pitch and said they weren't NUFC. That was brilliant, to be honest with you. We've been critical of Eddie, being a bit too soft, a bit too nice guy. But he absolutely tore shreds off them on the side of the pitch, didn't he? And I think Bruno Guimarães did an interview with Portuguese or Brazilian TV or something, and they asked him about that. And he basically, Bruno just being Bruno, just said it carte blanche, really, just kind of let rip and said, they basically told us we couldn't pass it, couldn't hold it, couldn't kick it. He just went through this list of anyhow, just scything them down. And then obviously he said, that's not Newcastle United. And I think that really gave the players a kick up the arse, didn't it, really? I mean, Fulham still had a lot of the ball, but I think after that bollocking, we did settle down a bit, Mark, didn't we, as well? Just before you answer that, bit of love from Alan there from Michigan. Thank you for your shows. Thank you for that comment as well, Alan. We really appreciate that. It's lovely to know we're being watched over the pond, mate. So we're glad you enjoyed the shows. But yeah, on that, Mark, it was good to see Eddie Howe almost grow a pair a little bit on the sideline and give them a bit of a doing. That's maybe what he does behind the scenes. We just don't see it.
Yeah, I think that obviously the break in the game allowed that to happen, but it needed to. I mean, first half, it's a weird one because you look at the number of passes and they're really even sort of in each half. First half, the possession was really down. I think at one point it was something like 24% possession about halfway through the first half. It ended up being 30 as Newcastle got a little bit more of the ball towards the end of the half. Second half, it was 37% possession. They had a few more passes, but did an awful lot more with it. I think the sort of the overall positioning of where they played was much further forward, and telling in the fact that expected goal wise, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, they actually had some in the second half. It was 0.1 in the first half and 0.87 in the second, and it just showed that everything that was there it was just much better in the second half. They got a bollocking halfway through the first half. It did change things. You can watch that momentum change where it's really telling in terms of the sort of the peak that was Fulham right the way through, probably until about the 30th minute mark, and then all of a sudden it just drops away and Newcastle take over a little bit. And then second half, like I say, it was much more even. But there were big spells when Newcastle had possession in the Fulham half or were much more of a threat, and it was a total change, and it sort of coincided as you said before with Anderson coming onto the field and being, I think, just much more of a wall in that midfield and with much more strength and much more about him.
Yeah, I think one thing he did as well is I think he unlocked Lewis Hall a bit as well, didn't he, Mark? I thought Lewis Hall was a bit slow coming into the game in the first half, and then almost the minute Anderson come on, I think one of Anderson's first couple of touches really got Lewis Hall involved in the game, and I think that was a real benefit for Lewis Hall. I felt, because there was obviously a player there who understood Lewis Hall's game, and then we started to see him getting the ball, we started to see him make those forward runs and get a bit more involved in the play, and that was really good news for that, mate, wasn't it? In terms of Anderson's ability to link up with the other young players as well. It's been quite exciting the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lewis Hall had a particularly difficult first 35 minutes or so. I thought Iwobi down that right-hand side really had his life at times. He had particularly, he had a really good start to the game. So he did have it difficult. He is still learning. I think that position he's got to learn very quickly. But I saw some comments about him just saying, "Oh, look, that just proves he's not a left back." It really doesn't. For me, it just proves that he's got a way to learn. But he's really good, and he does link well. He moves into midfield really well. How many other fullbacks do you see, the likes of Udogie at Spurs, get forward and get into the middle of the park? And watching Lewis Hall do the same thing, make those runs through almost the centre of midfield with the ball, and be able to then link up with the wide players like Barnes or Gordon down that left hand side. It is really telling, in something that's really been lacking from Newcastle's play. But I think the real promising sort of sign towards the end of the season is just that form from particularly those two, from Hall and from Anderson. I think those two work a good understanding. Anderson has that presence to be able to come and help as well when needed. I just think that is, like you say, it is a really promising thing to have going.
Absolutely, and a good shout by Dave there. Byrne did have another good game at centre half. I mean, who knew Dan Byrne could be such a good centre half, Dave? It wasn't like he played there when he first came in, but I will give Dan Byrne credit. He does get a lot of stick. He's had a lot of stick off us on the channel, me in particular, at left back. But I think centre half is definitely where he fits. I think he's more comfortable there. I think having a pacey left back alongside him helps him, because I think the speedy left back can pull onto the winger, and it gives Dan Byrne a bit more time to get his position set. And I think it makes him just look a bit more assured as well. And obviously having someone like Anderson with his energy and legs. I mean, Willock, which we'll come on to again in a minute, he did very little defensive cover for Lewis Hall in that first 30 minutes or whatever he played. And I just think he was really poor for Joe Willock. But again, we'll come on to him in a minute. But yeah, it was a snatch and grab, Mark. And like we say, we very much welcome the point. It keeps us in the hunt for the European spots. I mean, we are starting to talk now about even Europa League spots, which I must admit, and again, credit where it's due. We've been very critical of Eddie at times on the channel, because that's the kind of channel we are. We don't just fill ourselves full of shit and say, oh, he's wonderful all the time, because he's not. He makes mistakes. We're happy to say he makes mistakes. We're happy to say when he gets things right. We're not going to waterboard you like certain journalists who want to be invited to Christmas with the Hows. Every time he does something right, decides to ram it down your fucking throat like a piece of turkey. He is a good manager. He has done a good job here. If he gets us to 6, that's a fucking miracle, given everything that's gone on this season, no doubt about that. But it's okay for you to criticize him when you want to, because that's your right as a football fan. So that's all I'm going to say about a certain Edward Howe. So go on, Mark. You want to jump in? Go on.
No, I was just going to say I agree completely with Dan Burn. Look, it's not a revelation that he's played well at centre back, unless you write for the Chronicle, apparently, because the Chronicle have suddenly written a piece that was titled, and I love this, that said Newcastle may have already found giant FFP solution that could save millions. It's like they've just suddenly discovered that Newcastle, have a centre back who's 6'7" and is in the squad. Shock. We all knew that. We all knew he wasn't a left back, and he wasn't.
Played there before. Game. Played there before we signed Botman for a fucking half a season.
It's funny how things work out, isn't it? You put a natural centre back, and he plays well. The Chronicle thinks it's magic. Genuinely brilliant, that one. But give him his dues. We've given him stick, but he has been really, really good the last few weeks at centre back.
Yeah, he has. And we've got a new member in the house. Stan has clicked that button. Thank you very much, Stan. Welcome to the squad, mate. Good to have you on board. Yeah, the Chronicle is weird. It's almost just like someone's just, rather than having toilet paper, they're just smearing shit onto newspaper column inches and just throwing it out there, because it is fucking terrible. If you can actually read the piece from every advert that's trying to knock your head off as it flies in from everywhere, caravans, fucking funerals, fucking, heated blankets, whatever the fuck flies in your face at the Chronicle. It's a dreadful, dreadful website, and dreadful pieces as well.
They are, to be honest, all of them. I mean, all the ones that are linked to the same thing, they're all exactly the same. They all have the same problem with adverts, pop-up adverts, and just you cannot read anything properly without getting interrupted by 65 videos just to read like a 12-line piece. It's awful.
Honestly, I wouldn't read the Chronicle having a shit, even if I had nothing else to read, to be honest. So we'll leave you with that thought. So yeah, moving on to the next topic, we're going to talk about the magic front three. So we were thinking about this. We ended the game with arguably our best front three, even if the entire squad's fit, to be brutally honest with you, which is Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon, and Harvey Barnes. And just before we get into this, Mark, just a little bit of the kind of goal involvement from them. So just looking at Alex's stats here. So all in all games played, 33 games. That's Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, and Carabao. 33 appearances, 19 goals, and 1 assist for Alexander Isak. Anthony Gordon is 42 games played, 10 goals and 7 assists. And Harvey Barnes, almost the forgotten man, really, in terms of the amount of injuries he's had, even though he's only played 16 games in total, 4 goals and 2 assists. And I think the point we're trying to make here really is these lads are by far and away the best front three this squad has to offer, even when everybody's fit, in my opinion. Murphy shouldn't be anywhere near it if they're all fit, and neither should Miguel Almiron. What's your take on that, mate?
Tough to disagree there, because I genuinely think that front three gives you more balance as well. I think Barnes down the left and Gordon right-footed down the right. It's a change from obviously having the inverted sort of wingers, and I know keeping Barnes down that side is, but he has played there his entire career. Anthony Gordon has played on the right-hand side and played well on the right-hand side for Everton. I genuinely think that's the better position for Newcastle, despite how well he has played on the left-hand side this season. To put some context into Harvey Barnes' performance as well, he has only started 4 Premier League games this season. So his goal return in terms of goal per minutes is exceptional. 4 goals and 2 assists in 500 minutes of football. It is not a bad return at all, and just goes to show just the caliber of the player as well. But I think when you go in, hopefully, for the side that they've got them all fully fit to start next season, I think that genuinely has to be the front three if you are still going to play with that front three, and then the other parts come in and fit in around that to back those up. The likes of Murphy. If Willock's fit, Willock can fit in down that left-hand side, or Joelinton, or you can mix and match. If Minteh's back, we'll see what he does, or whether he gets a year out on loan. The one I've left out being Miggy, I think he will be one that will potentially would be one to move on. I know we've talked about that before, but I think definitely a sellable asset that alleviates a little bit of problem and can open the door to a few more players come in the summer that are desperately needed to help bolster the squad.
Absolutely. I'll come back to Minteh in a minute because that's a really valid point there as well about how well he was playing. I totally agree. This is the standpoint I have on it with Antagonise, that you can't leave one of them on the bench, i.e. Barnes, to bring on as a sub. You start your strongest. This is the bit that I can't get my head around. And again, praise Neddy when it's due, asking questions where the questions are warranted as well. I understand the need to think you need an impact player off the bench if the game isn't quite going the way you want to go. But Harvey Barnes, to me, and you saw his movement again against Fulham, he plays a massive part in the goal again. He did the same thing against Everton with his ball over Alexander Isak. We just talked about the numbers there, given the fact that Barnes has played next to no football. Obviously, Isak's played quite a lot of football, but he has missed a lot of football through injury, and Gordon's been a real constant all season. But if, say, for example, Spurs at the weekend, if we really want to go at Spurs, I'm not going to say we're going to do what we did in the 6-1. Fucking hell, I hope we do. But if when we're playing against Spurs, we need, especially at home, we need to go right at them, right down their throats. And what better front three to start with than that as a front three to really give Spurs a problem in the first 20 minutes of that game, to fucking go right at them, to drag Maddison back, to drag other players back, and just go right in their face in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of that game. We haven't got a good enough squad to throw those dice and hope that we're not chasing a game to bring on Harvey Barnes to try and rescue for us. In my opinion, Mark, those three, if fit and on form, which they are, have to start the games because we need to get 2-0 in front, not be chasing, from 2-1 behind.
Yeah, Spurs are a different prospect, I think, to where they were before.
I get that.
Absolutely, they are. However, Forest showed yesterday that there are still gaps, there are still holes in there. I mean, Chris Wood could have had a hat-trick yesterday quite easily if he wasn't a complete and utter plank and lashed one off the post from half a yard out, and then had a header that went straight at the goalkeeper. So they could have been what would have been at that point 2-1 and gone maybe 2-2 or 3-2 up at the point in which he misses the third opportunity. So there are definitely holes there. The defence, Mickey van der Ven is an unbelievable centre back. He's got so much pace as well.
Great find that guy, yeah.
But Romero is suspect at times, although he has been much better this season. I think Pedro Porro is great going forward, but is suspect, defensively at times. And Udogie as well loves to get himself forward, and you can find holes behind him. And if you've got Gordon and Barnes pinning them back, it suddenly leaves them a little bit more exposed, especially to the likes of Bruno getting in and around the edge of the box and Isak occupying probably both centre backs. I think there's definite opportunities there for Newcastle to get a really, really good result. And no, I don't think it's going to be another 6-1, but geez, anything could happen. I mean, this Premier League season has been absolutely bonkers. You only have to look at the bloody Man U Liverpool game, and any result is possible at any given point. So it wouldn't surprise me if Newcastle did come out and win comfortably. It probably wouldn't surprise me if you got any other result out of that as well.
Absolutely. Just some comments there about Murphy as well. Dan, it was a contrast of insight because Ian says that Murphy was bad. Dave says Murphy had a great game. Then he has a game like Saturday where he's shocking. Not enough consistency. Barnes, Gordon, Isak at a great front line. I'd love to get Williams in for the right wing. And a few other people talking about Minteh, would be Farmers talking about Minteh. So Minteh had an absolute blinder the weekend, as we saw in the big Dutch derby, Feyenoord versus Ajax. He got 2 goals, 2 great goals, especially the second one. And he got an assist as well. But just to add a bit of context in that as well, Mark. So Yankuba Minteh, our 19-year-old winger who can't even drive yet, he has to walk to and from the ground because he can't drive yet. All in all, has 32 appearances. That's across the Eredivisie, Champions League, Europa League, and their cup games. 32 appearances, 10 goals, and 4 assists. And 9 of those goals and those 4 assists have all come in the Eredivisie. I mean, the lad is on fire this season. He really is. And a few people are talking there. I think Roger's saying add Minteh to the squad. There's competition too. You just talked about Miggy there. Looking at the players that could possibly potentially be that right starting position. You've got, if Anthony Gordon is going to be able to play on the right and Barnes on the left and Isak through the middle as that front three. You've got Minteh as backup as well, and maybe Murphy. Does you say, is Miggy the one that you sacrifice, or do you sacrifice Murphy and keep Miggy? Where's your kind of thought? And obviously on Minteh, would you loan him out for another season, or would you bring him back in pre-season? They've got to bring him back in pre-season and see what he's all about. They have to, don't they?
I think you need to. I mean, just as a quick sort of show, and I know I love these sort of charts.
You do love your radars. You love a radar. For those on the audio, Mark has got the Independence spaceship radar up here.
So, I mean, the production from him is just, and I know this is based on this is not the Europe's top 5 leagues. This is based on the next 14 leagues because it's the Eredivisie and they're not classed in the same level as the Premier League and Bundesliga, etc. But to sit at the 99th percentile or 95th percentile for shots, non-penalty goals, non-penalty XG, shot creating actions in the 97th percentile, assist in the 85th percentile. The production from him is unbelievable. And then you look at the other side in terms of possession, progressive carries, successful take-ons, touches in the attack and penalty area, progressive passes received, all in the 99th percentile. And he's 99th percentile for tackles as well. So he's willing to do a little bit of graft. Defensively, he's a little bit suspect at times, but he's still learning. He's got a long way to go, but he's willing to put it in. I just think that you're absolutely right. You've got to get him back in the summer and have a look at him and go, can you do it? Not on a cold Tuesday night in Stoke, because I don't think you're going to end up playing Stoke for many, many years. But you've got to see, you've got a cup game maybe. You've got to, you have to have a look at him probably against some of the better opposition. Get him back and get him in. I mean, if you can return in time for the Tottenham game in Australia, perhaps. I don't know how likely that would be, but certainly in pre-season, if you're going to have another Salah Cup against the likes of Fiorentina and things like that, or teams in that sort of level, then you absolutely have to have a look at him and go, do you bring anything to this squad now, or is another season on loan learning your craft again more beneficial to us? But I definitely think you absolutely have to have a look at him, especially playing with some of the players in the squad now, the likes of Bruno, etc. He's got to get used to them being around. He's got to get used to playing with them.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think knowing Eddie Howe the way that we do, he's got to be keeping an eye on Minteh. He's got to be looking at those stats that, as you just looked at there, Mark, and he's probably thinking, this kid looks the real deal, but obviously that's a very different league. Bring him back in the preseason, put him in amongst those players, see how he works, see how he moves with the likes of an Isak or a Barnes and a Gordon, and if he does fit in and he looks the part. I mean, look at Louis Miley, 17 years old. The passes he's found Isak with, he can work with these players, and he can fit in with these players, and he gets better and better every game, does Louis Miley. Hopefully we'll see him in the next couple of weeks, with this bruising in the back rather than obviously a severe injury to the back. But yeah, I'm very excited for Minteh coming back in, but there's a lot of dead wood in this squad, and we're not scared to say it's dead wood, because it's fucking dead wood. It's been with us since the Championship. The better years are long behind them. When Paul Dummett's doing the fucking RKO in the box, it's time to let him go. When Matt Ritchie you know, you can hear his knees creak from fucking Newcastle when we're in an away game. You know, it's time to move him on. You know, and even Mickey Almiron with the pathetic level of assists and goal involvement he's had in all the years he's been here, bar last season. It could be time to move him on. You know, I think I sent a message before about the Saudi. You know, we've got to look at the Saudi league. You know, the Saudi league might be a good place for someone like Miggy. I think Murphy can still do a job. He's versatile as well. He can play full back as well, so he gives you a couple of options. So I think Murphy might get another season at Newcastle United, but it all depends on what happens with these PSR rules as well, Mark. You know, in terms of in terms of who we can and can't buy. Vincent's saying sell Miggy and play Minteh. And his stats look good. You know, I think you're right, Vincent. But, you know, there's a valid point Mark's making there. We need to see what he's all about in amongst, you know, Premier League teams, you know. And I think whatever we end up doing pre-season, my worry is, Mark, is that if we do another tour of America, does Darren Eales think Miggy has that marketable value again because they love him in the MLS? And does that mean we're stuck with this fucking bloke again for another season? Or do they make the decision and, you know, and maybe farm him out?
I think commercially, what does it bring you? What does Miggy Almiron bring commercially? He doesn't bring an awful lot. I'm really sorry. He's not gonna sell a Lionel Messi level of shirt or a Cristiano Ronaldo level of shirt. He's not going to bring in huge amounts of sponsorship.
That's the comment right there. You're bang on, antagonized. Bang on.
Absolutely right, mate. I genuinely think he's done such a good job at being in, you know, as part of that squad that is been saved from relegation, you know, gone through the crap of previous manager and been an integral part of the squad that, you know, beat relegation and then qualified for the Champions League last season. He was excellent at times last season, and you hold your hands up and say, yeah, you went through a massive purple patch. But we said, didn't we, last season and sort of the start of this season that you knew Almiron's level. You absolutely knew what it was going to be. He was going to return to that sort of level and that standard, and it's not good enough for where Newcastle want to go. So he's done his job. He's been a brilliant part of that squad for the last few years. But it's time to move him on. And you absolutely, you know, there was money to be made there from him to help with future, you know, future prospects or other players that come into that squad. I just think it's time, and you've got players that can absolutely cover in that position, and he's not going to be needed.
No, he's not good enough, as a few of the guys have said. Marcus is saying we need to give him time to completely replace the players we were watching under Bruce. Yeah, I mean, hopefully those PSR rules will be adjusted, Marcus, and we will be able to do that. But I do like George's comment there. Miguel Almiron so brainless, he makes an overexcited Cocker Spaniel look like Albert Einstein on Valium. Exactly. That's not a bad show, man. That's not a bad show. Well, moving on to the next topic. Yeah, this is something I touched on in the post-match, and a concern that I've had really, and I've just been looking at his injury history, and I'll just read this out here in the background, Mark. But we're talking about Willock worry. So we all know Joe Willock went off injured against Fulham, and the weird batshit nature of Eddie Howe coming out saying he's playing with an injury. We'll come back to that in a second, which just blew both our minds, Mark, really, didn't it? But just looking at Willock's injury history. So, I mean, he hasn't been an injury-prone player. So this is going to go back from, you know, the 1920 season. So he only missed 12 days with injury, which was one injury. So he only missed 2 games. The season after, 21-22 season, he missed 40 days, which was 3 injuries he had, and that was 5 games missed. 22-23 missed 18 days. It was 1 injury, so he missed 3 games. But this season, he has missed 174 days over 2 injuries, and he's missed 30 games. So what on earth has happened to Joe Willock at the age of 24 years old that he's breaking down this much, mate?
I think it's a lot potentially of not being fully fit when he's been asked to come back and play. And
rushing back, is that him? Is that him, or is that the management? That's the question.
I think that's a bit of both. I think look, players are always, and this is why. And funny enough, Americans talk about this with American football, that it should be taken out of their hands.
He did get a kick. Roger's right. He did get a kick against Fulham, to be fair. Someone did give him a clip
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. Look, you can't legislate for that really when players are coming back. But it's the comments from Howe about coming back and him not being fully fit, not being quite right. Well, for me, why is he there? Why is he being risked when he's not right? Because you're begging for it to happen again. And I get the two injuries, or the two big injuries this season. You missed the start of the season with a hamstring injury, and then it goes into an Achilles tendon problem. But he's clearly not been right since. He's played two games where he's made 70 minutes. The rest of the games he's been a bit part player as a sub, or he's gone off early at the weekend as well. Those are not injuries that you rush somebody back from, unless you are absolutely sure. And it's clear that Eddie knows that he's not sure about him, because he's come out and he said that he's come out and said that he hasn't looked right. He hasn't he's not fully fit. And for me, it's almost bordering on criminal at that point, because you're looking at a player going, you've come back from an Achilles injury and they're nasty and they can be really, really bad. And you're just begging for it to go again. And a knock or a slight twist or something in that, when he's not fully up to speed, you're just asking for trouble with it. And it's such a shame for him, because he's such a good player, and he's been a huge miss at times this season, because his energy from midfield or in that front three, especially when Barnes has been missing, it's a massive miss. But the risk of just bringing him back so quickly is just mind-boggling to me. And it's been the same for a few players when they've just been rushed back into the squad. Dan Burn was the other one earlier in the season, where I think the talk was that Dan Burn had, when he'd come back for his back injury, he was back and he was like, right, I'm ready, I'm back in training. And he was told, yeah, you're back in this side on at the weekend. He's like, hang on a minute, you've not kicked the ball in a few weeks. But it's I think it's just the rush to get anybody back at times, because there've just been so many players missing. They're just so eager to get players back, and they're not helping themselves, either the player or the manager.
I think Marcus is right. He doesn't look up to speed. I mean, for a player that relies on his speed and his drive, as you say, Mark, his energy to get you up the park, that's Joe Willock's game. He gets the ball and he drives the team. He's so off the pace. And it's not fair to the player either to do that. Graham's saying Miley, will he play next season? So maybe loan out Sandro, Bruno, J7, Willock. If we buy another number 6, he could end up with little playtime. I'm not sure, Graham. I think Louis Miley could potentially come back in pre-season, be even better than we've seen this season. I think he'll grow a bit more into his build. I think this season's probably really helped him get to that level. I think Louis Miley's got a big future with us, Graham. I see a bit of a Phil Foden style path for Louis Miley. That sounds like I'm putting a lot of pressure on the lad, but I think he's that good already now. I think we'd probably more see, and there's a couple of names in there as well, Graham. Bruno, I don't know what's going to go on with his contract. Joelinton's contract still up in the air. We've just been saying Willock keeps breaking down. Sandro Tonali, let's call it right here. Even before he got suspended, he was out of the team. He wasn't impacting the team a great deal. He had little moments, but they were fleeting. So I'm not sure that Miley will get shoved out on loan unless we do maybe buy another 2 or 3 players. But it all depends on those PSR rules getting slacker. But going back to Joe Willock, Mark, I think Joe Willock, I don't think we'll get rid of him this summer. I think they'll try their best to get him fit. But this whole thing with Eddie playing him again and again and again, it fucking drives me mad. It really does. As Ian says there, here we go again, playing players with injuries, making them worse. What's going on with our medical unit? It's a good question. The medical unit, the management team as well. A player's always going to want to play. If a player's fucking leg was hanging off, they'd want to play, because that's what they want to do. They want to play every single game. But as a manager, sometimes you've got to say, listen, I'm sorry, but I don't want you to get injured longer term. I need you in the season. Go and have an operation. Go and get yourself sorted. These players look up to Eddie Howe, Market, and they would listen to that if he said that to them. I don't buy into this whole thing that Sven Botman said no, so no means no. I'm sorry, mate. He's not a fucking prom date. You know what I mean? No means no. Like, you tell the lad, you say, look, Sven, I don't want you breaking down and doing yourself in and jeopardising your career. And the same with Joe Willock. I mean, Joe Willock, by and large, at Newcastle United, has had a really good career. at Newcastle United. He couldn't stop scoring when we signed him, even under the Baron and Bacon. Eddie Howe's turned him into a more complete player. He was sensational last season, Mark. Getting us in the Champions League, as we all agree, was fucking brilliant. He should have been in the England team, in my opinion. And for whatever reason, this season, he can't shake injuries. But for fuck's sake, we need to stop playing these players who are injured, because they can't even give you 100% of what they give you anyway, can they? Botman looks more like a Ford Cortina than a Rolls Royce since he come back with that injury. And Willock's got all the drive of a fucking 3-wheeled golf cart. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. What's the point in letting these lads play when they can't even play the game that they play?
Please don't knock Ford Cortinas.
You haven't got one, so if anyone listening thinks Mark has a Ford Cortina, that's how he done his Achilles. That's how he done his Achilles. He come out and he fucking snapped his Achilles on that dodgy Ford door.
Hey, man. No, look, you're absolutely right that you always want your players playing at 100%. It's never going to be the case. Every player, it's really at some point he's going to be carrying something, but there are even degrees of that. But some of the players that have come back have been so wildly short of fitness that it's just absolutely unfair to keep doing it. And look, the manager can't make a player have an operation if he doesn't want to have an operation, but he has to have a relatively strong conversation about making sure that he's fit before he steps foot on the field. And again, come back to the medical team and not allowing players to play when they're clearly not fit and they're clearly not ready to play. And Botman for a while looked like that. Joe Willock has looked like that. Shaun Longstaff for weeks and weeks and weeks has just looked so short of fitness that's really affected his game. So, yeah, and I know that the squad is short on numbers, and that's a big issue. But Eddie's not helped himself in that regard with continuing to play players that are so massively off out of any sort of match fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham is saying the Mark II 1600 Cortina, always a classic, is what he said. But when I saw MK2 1600, I thought that was something that went back to kill John Connor back in the day, Graham, for a minute. I wasn't too sure where you were going with that one, mate. But yes, I'm only joking, of course. Just the analogy of car changes is what I'm talking about. Tacoin is saying Bruno looked like that last season too. I mean, even when Bruno was carted, though, he still had an impact on the game, didn't he? Even though he was still 70%, he was probably still 100% the best player in the park, probably. George is saying perhaps the medical team have been looking at the x-rays front to back and just didn't realise the ultrasound scanner instructions properly. Very likely, mate, very likely. Maybe it was the ones that like Mike Ashley left, and he got them from the cheapest factory going, so it was all in different language. They just wing it and said, press that button. No, fuck, he's injured. Something's wrong there. Or he's fit, But yeah, for me, I really hope Joe Willock comes back, because I don't want to write Joe Willock off, because I love him as a Newcastle player. I think, what he's done since he's been here has been absolutely brilliant. There's been more good from Joe Willock than anything else. And I really want him to get back fit and be that player. And listen, if we end up signing, 2 or 3 players in his position that are better than he is, he's still a really good squad player, Mark, isn't he, to have, with that drive and that impact and everything else. And, you can rotate your squad and you can be a bit more comfortable saying, right, okay, look, let's just say we do get into the Europa League and we'll get far in that competition. If we've got a Europa League quarter final, then you don't have to play. I'm just throwing a name out here. You don't have to play Chiesa. You can play Willock. You don't have to play Harvey Barnes or go and you can play Willock. You know what I mean? So it's nice to be able to have options like that of real quality, because that's the problem with Newcastle United. I mean, maybe outside of 15 or 16 players, let's just say we had a different season. Tonali wasn't banned. Joelinton hadn't been injured. Wilson hadn't got injured. Barnes hadn't been injured as much as he had. Pope was fit. Botman hadn't snapped his Achilles and nobody fucking noticed. All that kind of a thing, right? So if none of that happened, Newcastle probably got about 16, 17 really, really, really good players. And outside of that, you're talking about dross from the Championship, aren't you? You're talking about rank average players, man. That's what needs to change. We need to get 5 or 6 top quality players into that 16, 18, 20. And then those decent players move down to fill up the dross. That's what we need, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I said before, that the squad is an issue, and I sort of get it that you struggle for numbers and being able to take some of those players out of the squad, but and this is where this will take a little bit of time to refresh the squad completely. And I mean, there's probably 10 in that squad that need to move on, if not a few more. And I know the younger players are getting released, and there's that list of 8 I think that are away.
They're on the bench. They're on the bench.
Well,
what is that about? That makes no sense.
And that tells you everything. It tells you everything about where the squad is
Harrison
at
on
the
the
moment.
bench. Put Alfie Harrison on the bench or somebody. Why are you putting a fucking player who's getting released? I don't get it.
I do get that, but I think did Alfie Harrison not say himself last week that he was getting to grips with the next step up for the 21s level of football as well. So give him some experience, maybe from the bench, or just being on the bench and having first team match day squad experience. But if he's not ready, then it seems pointless exercise and taking away from potentially another game of learning his craft at the right level for him at the moment. Whereas I think they played the night before the Fulham game. Was it that potentially? I know he played well. So
they got a couple of assists, didn't you? I saw they got a couple of assists.
It would seem daft to take him away from that and take him away from his overall education in the game. But it does seem
you're old enough, mate.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think sometimes that he knows himself that he's not quite there yet, and he's got a little way to go. And I think he probably is better served by having a few more games under his belt at that level. And learning his craft a little bit more there than being shoved on the bench and not playing. Whereas the others, they've been in and around the squad most of the season. They can be used if called upon. I mean, most of them have only ever come on once, and that was much earlier in the season. I think that was one appearance for the lot of them. I can't remember which game it was now at St James's Park where 3 of them came on. Someone will have to refresh my memory in the comments for that, but it did seem odd that you announced they're all released and then you put them all on the bench, but needs must at the moment because the squad is absolutely decimated. Look at that list of players that are currently missing that we looked at last week or the week before.
Yeah, but you'd be on the bench trying to snap your Achilles in your Ford Cortina, you daft bastard. You'd be there. I do agree with Woodby Farmer saying we'd be 5th or 6th if Pope was fit. I do agree with that. I think Pope's with so many more points. We even saw that the weekend, but even the Bravka had a better game. He's still so slow off his line. Cher bollocked him at one point. They just got sick of him being glued to his line. Jonathan saying high hopes for Tonali next season. He's been training with us for over a year now, knows how we play, itching to go, and no communication problems either. I'm with you on that, Jonathan. I've been very vocal about the whole Tonali thing and how bad that deal looks from the outset for the club. And I'm totally in favour of people who want to support Tonali, but I'm also in favour of people who feel that he's let them down and they need to win. He needs to win back their trust. But he only does that by playing. And we've seen clips of him training. He has looked good. He's communicating with people. He's talking to people. Obviously, he's going to take. If he comes back and he's got a good grasp of the English language, and he starts to play, in the way that we saw him play against Villa, the way that we saw him play against Milan, a bit against PSG and Liverpool. If Bruno stays, hopefully he will. If Joelinton can sign a new contract, hopefully he does. And if we have a midfield 3 mark on form and fit of Tonali, Joelinton, and Bruno, I mean that's one of the best midfield 3s in the league. And then underneath that, even if you have, Elliot Anderson and Louis Miley, there to come in and fill positions. Anderson showed he can offer that physicality that Joelinton brings. Miley's great on the ball. I'm not saying he's Bruno Guimarães, but he's good on the ball. He can find pockets of space. We know he can assist as well. Maybe if we sign another player to come in and be part of that midfield cover as well, then you start after asking questions about Shaun Longstaff. 100% profit to sell him on. Is Shaun got to that level? He's not going to get any higher. Will we sell him, or do you think Eddie's going to keep him? Have you got a viewpoint on Shaun, or do you think we'll have to just wait and see in the summer?
I know what I would do. and it's not
You're
good
going to come
news
off
for
that
him.
fence in case you snap your other ligament.
I will. No, I will, because look, if you go into next year and you hit the nail on the head, you're starting 3 next season. You're looking at Joelinton, Bruno, and Tonali if they're all there, and yes, Tonali has a lot of trust to win back, because he's let an awful lot of people down with his actions and stuff, and I think hopefully he gets no further punishment off the FA.
Yeah, it's stupid if he does.
You hope it's rolled into what his current punishment. And again, yeah, he spent the entire season now training, learning. The great thing about it has been, if you want to put a real positive spin in, that he wasn't banned from football-related activities like Ivan Toney was. He was allowed to train. He was allowed to stay around the squad. He just wasn't allowed to play. So he's learned what Eddie Howe wants. He knows the players around him. He knows, he's got a year's worth of like you said, communication with players around him, and to be able to integrate into that squad much better than I think than the first few games this season. And there were times he looked really good, times he didn't. But I think he needed time to develop into the squad, like Bruno did at first. He needed those first few games where he wasn't used too much, but was then let loose once he got to grips with the pace of the league. And it is a hell of a change from Serie A to the Premier League. So it's going to take a little bit of time for him.
Absolutely.
And I just don't think Shaun fits in at this point, because if you've got Anderson and Willock, if you've got Miley that covers another position, if you then go out and add maybe one more, all of a sudden Shaun's position in that squad disappears rapidly, because he's not an impact player. He's not going to be a player that comes off the bench to impact a game. What else does he then offer? He's not going to come and give defensive solidity, because he's not a defensive midfielder. He is pure profit. He does give you that ability to make money off him, and then just go and to be. We're still talking in terms of FFP here, because we don't know what.
And that might change.
There's going to be a change.
That might change. Yeah, exactly. It's getting voted on in June, isn't it? Before the window opens, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, but I do think his time may be limited. I really do.
Yeah, we'll wait and see for that. But moving on to our last section of the night, and you know how I love a segue, Mark. Segue. You're talking about punishments for Sandro Tonali. Well, this is the section, as you all know, where we talk about things that don't involve Newcastle United. And our favourite Scouse Mackhams are crying once again into their toffee tins, because Everton have been fucked yet again. I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for him, only a little bit, mind you. I'm starting to remember some of the abuse I got in the comments from some of the videos about Anthony Gordon. Everton have been deducted a further 2 points, so it's the latest penalty. Now, I think they've been found of a breach going over FFP PSR of 16 million. But again, Rachel Riley has clearly had the day off doing these calculations, Mark, because you sent me this before, and it was really pissing you off. So just explain why this latest deduction and the reasons for it has pissed you off.
Well, for me, and I'll give the credit for the message to Kieran Maguire, because he was the one that put it out earlier on. So their first case, they were 19.5 million over the limit. Premier League wanted a 10-point deduction. That's what they were given, and then it was reduced to 6 on appeal. The second case is 16.5 million pounds over. The Premier League wanted 7, so it would have been slightly under what they'd given before. And the Commission's given them 2. So for only 3 million less than they were over for the previous punishment, they've been given 4 less points deduction. It makes absolutely no sense. Forest, who were 34.5 million pounds over the limit for the period in question, the Premier League wanted 8-point deduction, but got 4. I mean, none of it makes any sense. It's like that meme with the GIF with the mathematical equations everywhere, and you're just looking at it going, "Well, what the fuck's going on?" I've no idea.
This one.
I can't make head and tail of it, because none of those figures make any sense. That it doesn't correspond to say, well, a certain level of going over the limit gives you this particular punishment. It makes absolutely no sense. And
no,
yeah, I obviously they're going to appeal it, but I think, and they were complaining about the fact that they've been punished twice within the same season. But you breached the rules twice. Exactly right. I mean, what this means?
I might try that if I get done speeding. I say, well, why have you done me twice? Only the sped twice, but it was only in one journey. You can't let me go on that one.
The other thing as well. Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say there supposedly is more coming for Everton as well, but that will supposedly, if they are going to get further deductions, that will take place next season potentially, not this season. So, God,
where will they be next season? What league will they be in?
Well, I know what I hope they are, and that's not in the Premier League.
Well, I think they'll be in the Championship next season. I think they're done. I think this latest 2-point deduction, I'm just looking at the table there now, because it hasn't been implemented yet. So it would take them below Forest, wouldn't it? Because Forest are on 25 points, Everton are currently on 27. They'll lose 2 points, they'll drop.
No, that is them.
Oh, is that them there now? Is
it? So they were on 29, they've dropped to 27 because they were level on points with Brentford.
So they've still got a game in hand on Brentford and Forest and Luton and Burnley below them. But I don't know what the fixtures are. I mean, I'm just going to look at the last few fixtures to get a bit of an idea of
it. So they have to this weekend or on Monday they travel to Chelsea. Then they've got Forest, and this is the interesting thing. They play all the teams around them. So they have Forest
Liverpool as well, haven't they?
Then they've got Liverpool, then Brentford, then they travel to Luton, and then have Sheffield United, and then finish the season against Arsenal.
Yeah, so I can't see them getting anything. Although Chelsea are shocking, I'm not sure they'll get a win there. Forest, I'm not sure about that. Everton, I don't think they'll get a result there. Brentford, I don't think they'll get a result against them. Luton, could be a draw. Sheffield United, possibly, yes, a win there. And they'll get an out against Arsenal. So what they're looking at, what do you think? Maybe, what's that, 3, 4? I'm being very optimistic here. 5,
6, 7 points, maybe.
Yeah. 5-2, 7 points.
Probably keeps them safe.
You think that keeps them up? Well, the problem with Everton as well is, forget about all the fines and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Everton are that team. Newcastle have been it before. Villa have been it before. The Mackhams have been it before. You just stink in the league up, and sooner or later it catches up with you, and you get binned, and you might come straight back or you might not. But Everton's time surely is done in the Premier League. Mate.
They have circled the drain for too long now. Just
way too long.
Just get rid of them. Let's flush them and be done with them for a little while.
Flush them down the toilet. I fucking love it. Well, there's been a few other bits of football news as well, and funnily enough, this, even though it's out of tune, this is very much in tune now. Listen, he's Brazilian. He only cost 40 million, and we think he's fucking brilliant. And he's also got a fire stick by the looks of it. That's Joelinton.
The wonders of IPTV.
The wonders of internet TV. So if you didn't see this already, this was Joelinton's love-in for Bruno's goal. And everybody's very quick to think, hang on a minute, mate, that's a 3:00 kickoff game. How the fuck have you got that on your TV, Joe? So it's either a fire stick or a dodgy box. But I applaud him. And this is off the back of Harry Kane getting caught up by Mika Richards as well on CBS, wasn't it? Saying, hang on a minute, Harry, how are you watching Monday Night Football in Germany? It's not on. So I think the footballers know exactly what they're doing with this, mate.
My only assumption with him is he's got a contract in Brazil that he can utilize, and I wonder whether Harry Kane has a
subscription,
whether he can watch Sky Go or something like that over here. So we'll give him a legal route out of it, so he didn't get thrown.
But you're always looking for the good, Mark, aren't you? You're always looking for the good. People, you like Jiminy Cricket.
I really hope he does have a fire stick, and he has done it dodgy, because it's brilliant.
He's got a fire stick, man. He's got a fire stick. As Graham says there, VPN in Brazil. Ian says fire stick, 50 quid a year. These boys have got fire sticks. They'll have dodgy little mates of theirs. They'll say, well, don't you worry, mate. I'll give you the fire stick. You watch all the Brazilian football when you're in there. I'll fly over. I'll install it for you, Joe. No worries, mate. I love Joelinton. Well done, Big Joe. Well done. Absolutely class. Well, I'll tell you somebody who's not had a good week, mate. Unfortunately, he's lost his job, which is really unfortunate. And normally we're talking about a manager, no, a chairman, no, a director of football, no. We are talking about this fella, and that is I was going to say Rude the cat, which is probably about right. Jude the cat. The Queen's Park Rangers mascot has sadly lost his job, and the reason for it is absolutely brilliant. So apparently, this pussy was very keen on chatting to the ladies by the looks of it, mate. So that's why he lost his job. Do you think that's a little bit harsh, mate? Or is he the cat that got the cream, or
Well,
he lost his nightlife?
He was supposedly given multiple warnings for it, and before he was let go. So yeah, I think once you've gone through the point of being given multiple warnings for something, then you kind of the writing's on the wall with it there. But yeah, it's one of the oddest stories of the week, definitely.
But what they should have done is got that horrible old woman to put him in the bin, like she did with that cat that time, and just lifted him up and hid him in the wheelie bin. That would have been the way to get rid of him on Sky Sports. About had a few more views coming in there than normal. But yeah, very peculiar story, that one. Almost as peculiar as a possible new Manchester United manager being spotted in the crowd, which was absolute comedy gold for any of us who hate Manchester United like we do. Sam Allardyce was spotted there in his Arthur Daly jacket of all things, chatting to the saviours of Manchester United, to Jim Twatcliffe and Harry Hill, by looks of it there, or who's that?
David Brailsford.
David Brailsford. I thought it was that Greg who does fucking MasterChef there for a minute. I wasn't sure who it was. Yeah, Sam Allardyce talking to the new Manchester United owners at length. And it was absolutely fucking hilarious, to be honest with you. There's loads of rumours doing the rounds that Sam Allardyce was going to become their new set-piece coach. Other rumours that he was going to take over as interim manager towards the end of the season, which I think is fucking superb, to be honest with you. And I love that. I really hope that does happen, because that would be absolutely class. Absolutely class. As the lad says there, yeah, George says, please let him go there. Because he did say once, didn't he, Big Sam, that he could manage Real Madrid, if you remember.
He did. Famously said he could manage Real Madrid.
The only thing he's managing in Spain is a fucking boozer. That's the only thing he's managing over there, mate. He is fucking terrible. And speaking of Spain, and a more feel-good story as well, there was an absolutely brilliant story as Athletic Bilbao won the Copa del Rey, their first trophy in 40 years. They beat Real Mallorca 4-2 on penalties, and it was absolutely class to see. Bilbao is one of them clubs that's always just kind of dancing the periphery, but never quite got over the line. And this was an incredible scene, Mark, as well, wasn't it? The Williams brothers, is it Inaki and Nico, just embraced each other at the end of that game. I mean, it's the kind of thing we wanted Shaun and Matty Longstaff to be able to do, but never quite worked for them, mate, really. But what a story, man.
Yeah, and I mean, those two are fabulous footballers as well. There's a lot of rumours about them moving on from Athletic Club. So it's just a brilliant story for them to be part of that squad and be part of that club for so long, and to have got them their first trophy in that long as well. And you're right, they're one of those clubs that have been there or thereabouts and never quite pushed over the line, really. So just wonderful to see. I love that sort of thing. I really do. It's a really good story.
Absolutely. Some of the comments coming in for the Sam Allardyce thing is brilliant. J2C would love to see a Sam Allardyce at Man U alongside Southgate. Oh my God, that would be awesome to see them get relegated. Could you imagine that as a managerial duo? I'm not sure what old Goldbridge would do. They might shit them pajama bottoms that he wears watching the streams, possibly, with them two coming in.
Maybe he actually would quit as he threatened last week. That
I'm sure he wouldn't with all of his subscribers. Yeah, Graham saying I would love Nico, £40 million release clause. Wow. He's lightning quick as well, isn't he, Graham? To be fair, he's an unbelievable player. So yeah, I think they'll be gathering a lot more attention, I think, from other clubs. Then there was some other football. There was some other football going on as well in terms of another cup final, but it didn't quite go as well as this one in terms of the lovely embrace and story. It's almost another week, Mark, another drama in Turkey, to be fair, and it's this one here. So Galatasaray were playing Fenerbahce. If you remember, Fenerbahce feel really disheartened and hard done by the Turkish FA. They're even looking for a new league to play. And just to kind of sum up your average Turkish cup final here for match of the day. So Fenerbahce fielded under-19s in protest at alleged unfair treatment. Galatasaray scored in the first minute, And then Fenerbahce walked off the pitch and the game was abandoned. So Galatasaray lifted the trophy, much to Enquiries' joy there. He doesn't give a shit that they walked off the pitch. He was just happy to get a trophy, really, wasn't he? But what on earth is this about, mate?
Was it him that was applauding them off as well?
I think it was.
I think one of the players that was stood up by the sideline applauding them off. I'd read something earlier on that they'd asked for the game to be changed because of the European games this week, because they play. Do they play Olympiacos later this week? I might have that game wrong, but they play in Europe later in the week, so they'd asked for the game to be changed. And these are cup finals, final. So tough it is when it is. If you get into Europe, that's on you, really. And I know
it is the Europa Conference, Thursday, the quarters, yeah.
And it's not like changing a league game from a Saturday to a Friday, as we've seen other leagues do for their teams when they're playing in Europe. But it is a mad one, and they think that, or they claim that obviously Galatasaray get all the decisions, they get all the perks, they get all the benefit that the league throw their way, and nobody else gets anything. So they are not happy at the moment. It's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, they're not in the best chuff deck. More comments about Bilbao there, which was more of an enjoyable cup final. Bilbao can only play with Basque players. Yeah. Notice the detail for it's very relevant, but it's the only club that was never relegated besides Madrid and Barca. Fantastic. No, I mean, they've always been kind of thereabouts as well. And Duncan did say, actually, just remind you all, guys, there's 160 of you in lives there. Smash the like if you can, guys. It really helps the channel grow. And just finishing up with one last Out of Toon here, which was, to be honest with you, it's quite graphic, everybody. So please look away. If you are rather squeamish. I don't know whether you saw it, but there was an absolutely tragic injury to Ben White of Arsenal when Arsenal played his former team, Brighton. It was so sickening that it was almost like a scene out of Casualty, where it left Ben White in this state, Mark. And I'm going to pass this to you, because being the empathetic soul that you are, you really felt Ben White's pain here, didn't you? His fake tan almost ran. That's how bad this was when he hit the deck, mate. So tell us about this one.
Fucking cheating bastard. Honest to God, man. It was about as blatant a piece of cheating as you see. And you talk about the likes of Fernandez or Maddison or whoever it is diving to win free kicks and penalties,
or punching people, James Maddison.
Or punching people. That's another decision. I mean, that's ridiculous. So it's now all right for your top four in the league to now punch other players and get away with it. But Ben White, I mean, that's shocking. That should come with a retrospective ban. It is.
I think so.
Bringing the game into disrepute. It is trying to con the referee. It is trying to con the officials.
And it was embarrassing. Ian's right. It was totally embarrassing.
It was. That's not strong enough word for me. And I think I tweeted something like that out over the weekend as well. And it's awful. It's absolutely shocking to do that against your old club.
I know your former for something team as well.
It was just nothing. It was a nothing touch from the other player in terms of there's absolutely no need for him to gone down. It really likened it to the Bruno Fernandes one the other week, where he went down screaming on the floor. He's rolling around holding his leg, and as soon as he got the ball sort of in the corner, he hops up and starts running back. So those sort of I'm sorry, but they should be punished. They should be retrospectively punished with a game or 2 game ban, because it's absolutely shocking. I can't stand it.
Bad sportsmanship, isn't it, though, really? If you think about it, you're setting examples for kids here. Years ago, kids started diving because some players were diving, and then, they started, arguing with referees, and now they're going to start doing stuff like this, where somebody shoves them in and fall down and hold their face and roll around. And it's shocking, really. I mean, Ben White's supposed to be a role model. He's had a rough couple of months in terms of, what he's portraying himself as a player. He won't play for England because apparently the coaches upset him, and now he's rolling around like a fucking tart on a night out, just fucking have a word with yourself, White. I mean, if that was my play, if I was the Arsenal manager, I would probably have a serious word with him. But obviously, the Arsenal manager is a complete wanker with a Lego head, isn't he? So he's not going to say no to the bloke, is he?
Well, he's probably teaching him how to do it.
Look, he probably is.
The funny thing is, though,
disgrace.
I don't remember Arteta being that as a player.
No, he was quite tough as a player, Arteta. He used to fly the tackles and stuff.
I'm sorry, if you're managing one of your players does something like that, I'm sorry, I'm substituting them. I'm bringing them off. I'm making an example of them because I just think it is pathetic, absolutely pathetic, and it happens too much, and something has to happen for this to stop, because it's absolutely pathetic, and I'm absolutely sick of watching every week where a player will just fling themselves down like that when there's absolutely been no contact. I thought, who is it that got done last week with a goal? Was it Burnley? It was Burnley against Wolves. The free kick that led to Wolves' equaliser was absolutely shocking. The Burnley player makes no contact with the Wolves player at all, who sort of spins to try and go past him, falls on the floor, and the referee gives a free kick. It's things like that that drive me absolutely insane. It's just... It has to be sorted out. It has to be put. Somebody has to grab hold of them and just shake them into shape, because it's pathetic. I'll use that word again.
No, but it really is. But not all football was disappointing this weekend. Just gone there. Just to finish on this one before we show off a real quick one. Unbelievable Old Firm derby that we saw on Sunday. What a game! Ended 3-3. Obviously, Rangers scoring a belter goal, kind of, right at the death, really. And there's 1 point in it between those two at the top of the league. And that is what football is all about. I love that game. I love it when it's like that. There was tackles flying all over. There was yellow cards. There was no silly red cards. But the referee handled it fairly well, in all fairness. And just really good goals all around, Mark, wasn't it? It was an enjoyable game.
Yeah, that equaliser from, was it Rabbi Matondo at the end?
It was.
I mean, just sensational. If you haven't seen the footage from behind him, it's phenomenal. What a strike that is! In that game with into injury time, where Celtic would have gone 4 points clear with a game, Rangers would have had a game in hand. So then now keeps them at 1 point. 3 points clear with a game in hand. To be only 1 point clear and still have that game in hand. It makes such a difference, and what a strike! And the kid at the other one as well this weekend was the Peterborough lad. Was it Harrison Burrows that killed one in
corner
from the corner?
Yeah,
Jesus.
miles out. Ward Prowse did one as well, didn't he? But yeah, it was brilliant. It was interesting to see two England goalkeepers as well. Actually, the Old Firm derby, two former England goalkeepers, as I said to you, which was very interesting. Maybe Nick Pope will be wondering how he's going to do in the Old Firm derby in about 7 or 8 years, possibly. But hopefully by that point, he's won a few trophies with Newcastle United. But that's us done for this week, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in and jumping in the comments. It always helps the episode flow. We really enjoy that back and forth with you guys, to me and Mark. We'll be back with some more Newcastle United banter this week. We've got some rumour hazard videos to load up, and we'll also be back with a Spurs preview and a post-match analysis of hopefully another 3 points for Newcastle United this weekend in the Premier League. Have a cracking evening wherever you are, everybody, and we'll catch you later. See you.
Take care, guys. See you later.